So very good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to the Mindful Parenting webinar. So the theme that Frank and I are going to be speaking on is, what do our kids want from our parenting? We often look from our perspective as parents as to what we want from our kids. Our kids are like our customers. We need to know their needs. And I started this program today with the song, If We Hold On Together, by taking you back to the time that you got married, the kind of dreams that you had, the dreams about your marriage and the kind of family that you were going to raise. And what is happening today? Is it quite what you had planned out and having in mind? Or has it not quite turned out the way you had hoped for? Well, it is not too late to put things back on track. And what's really important is for parents to hold on together, because our kids would like to see us walking in the same direction. So even though some of us, like in my case, that my husband or my ex-husband and I are no longer together, but our parenting approach is aligned, because we still have very clear objectives of raising our children to be able to take care of themselves, to be able to be set free with their wings and fly in the direction that they wish, that they are able to look after themselves and to be financially independent, as well as emotionally stable, for them to take on the challenges in the world as life unfolds for them. So if you are together as a couple, walking in the same direction together is still very important, because your kids need the guidance, the direction, and the stability that you provide. So I was just having lunch with my ex today, and we enjoy each other's company, even though we're no longer together as a couple, but we are still together as parents for our children. Alignment, harmony, and giving our kids the support that they need. It's still always going to be our joint objective. So I'm going to share some thoughts that my students had indicated in their essay, because it's important to be able to get some insights into their minds as to how they are feeling as they're growing up. So I'm going to read to you. I felt pretty hopeless at what was happening in the world around me, and I was constantly arguing with myself about why things around the world were the way it is, as I was interested in world issues such as hunger, poverty, violence, and sanitization, etc. I felt that life was quite meaningless, as whatever we do would not be able to make a change. At the same time, I was also tired of life struggles that I face, such as anxiety and low self-esteem. I feel that my childhood wasn't the best, as I thought my parents always had high expectations, and I felt threatened often. Being the middle child did not help, as I thought that I was being compared with my elder brother, who was academically smarter than me. As I was quiet in secondary school, I found myself being bullied in lower secondary, and I was afraid to speak up in fear of being ridiculed. And thus far, I have not told many people about this. Because of this, I began to have trust issues with people, and coupled with my low self-esteem, my social life was affected. Slowly, I started to numb myself to the pain that I felt, and I started binge eating. Ever since then, I have constantly been striving to get into polytechnic and then into university. Though some years have passed and my mental state has gradually become better, the passing of my grandmother and my dog a few months back have left me more emotionally unstable recently. The mindfulness journey that I've embarked on has led me to understand my emotions and physical sensations better. I found that my mind was frequently distracted with inner conversations, chatter, and thoughts that made it difficult for me to focus. During the class where we had to grab a snack to try mindful eating, I grabbed an Oreo and tried eating it mindfully. Through that experience, I realized that Oreo is very sweet and the cream smelled quite artificial. I told myself that perhaps Oreo is not very healthy and I should eat less of them. This realization led me to eat mindfully ever since. Usually, I would rush through eating my food, and sometimes I would even be checking on my phone while eating. After trying out mindful eating, I came to appreciate the process of eating while I still could. The mindful eating habit that I've picked up allowed me to gain joy from the simple things in life, such as eating, and I'm thankful for that. Now, I'm sharing this because this is a university student, and he had a lot of sense of hopelessness, even though he's in university, because he sees the world as rather bleak. And he is worried about what life unfolds for him, and especially in this climate of the pandemic, where things don't seem to be turning around yet. So, do we understand our children in terms of their fears, how they see the world? So, as parents, if we're going to be supporting their growth, we need to get a sense of how they think and what they're thinking. Not to tell them what to think, but to understand how they think. When was the last time you asked your children, what are your fears? And how can mommy or daddy support you? And perhaps there's nothing much we can do, but if they know that we're around them, to be supportive and not judge them, especially if they tell us something and we may pass a remark like, oh, don't be silly. There's nothing to fear. That's not very helpful. So if we can practice mindful listening and just be quiet for 5 minutes or as long as they would like to express themselves and just listen and empathize and then ask, is there anything I can do to help you? How can I support you? And maybe there isn't. But the fact that they can share it with us is huge. I recall when I was going through marital problems, I could see my mother being in pain. She probably wanted to take some of my pain away, but there was no way she could do that. And maybe she even felt partly responsible because with her onset of dementia, and there were times when she was lucid, she may have felt that she may have made things complicated for me. But I had to go through that journey myself to learn how to embrace the pain, to grow with the pain, and to release the pain from myself so that I would come out stronger, wiser. So sometimes we look at our children and they going through a difficult time in their life. There is so much urge in us to want to help them, to want to take some of their pain away. But when I recollect my own situation, there is no way my mother could have done anything. But just being there was enough for me. I knew she was there, and that really helped. She was by my side. So with our kids is to enable them to journey, to learn, to grow, and to become wiser. And they will be able to find answers. Maybe not from us, but they will find someone who will help them. And a lot of times, these are their friends because they like to talk to each other much more than they would like to talk to parents. I recall that my inclination to talk to a friend was much stronger than talking to my own mother, or my father for that matter, when he was still alive. So we need to trust our children. And what this student also added on, that he was very angry when he found out that his parents read a letter that was mailed to him because he felt his privacy being invaded. And to our children, privacy is important, and so it was too during our time when we were growing up. So much of our inclination to want to protect our children may cause us to do something that we deem to be a good thing, but it does break the trust. And their anger means that they would just shut us out and be withdrawn. But even as parents, we have to learn this through our own mistakes and to learn how to trust, which is also something that is not a given, but a journey that we are on ourselves to learn how to be a good parent. So whatever mistakes you have made is to learn from them, to grow from them, to forgive yourself so that you can stay in the present moment for our children. And don't be afraid to apologize. I have in my journey apologized many times to my kids because I feel that I could have done better. But instead of just feeling regretful, I apologize, even though I'm the mother, because I also wanted them to learn that apologizing is okay and it should be done when we feel remorseful. So I urge you to also feel your own fears, your own vulnerabilities as a parent, in order for you to really connect with your kids. And sometimes, even though we don't connect so well, maybe not now, but things will improve. And to hold on to that dream and not to give up. So remember, our intention has always been get married, have kids, and raise our kids to be healthy and well. Remember that dream and do what it takes to fulfill that dream. So now I'd like to hand over to Frank, or maybe before we do that, would you like to do a mindfulness practice, Frank? You're muted.
Can you do that, Angie? I was not quite prepared for that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So let's find ourselves in a comfortable position. Closing our eyes. And let's take 3 beautiful deep breaths. And noticing the sensations in the body. And being aware of how the body feels now. And we'll do the 8 parts sensing of the body, starting with our feet, our bum on the chair. How are our shoulders feeling? Gently move your shoulders if you feel any tension there. And be aware of our hands and whether our hands are relaxed, the fingers curled up or are they extended. And tuning into the stomach, the chest, the neck, and be aware of our facial expression. And then dropping into our breath, wherever we feel the breath most. Being aware of our facial expression is important because as we are speaking, people are looking at our facial expression, and it's not something that we're always aware of. When we're speaking to our children, they are looking at our facial expression. And now I'd like to invite you to bring to mind something that you may be regretful of in how you treated your kids. And let that memory emerge. And now put that in front of you on the table, on the floor. And take a look at it now that it's in front of you with some distance. How were you feeling at that point in time? What were your emotions? What was your intention? And what was the outcome? And now I'd like to invite you to step into your child's shoes. What was that experience for them? Was it pleasant or unpleasant? Did he understand your intentions? Did he feel he benefited from that experience? Or was it otherwise? And what have you learned from that reflection? And now dropping back into your breath, wherever your breath is. And be aware of the body sensations that are present right now. And the presence of your breath. And the thoughts that may be arising. If you're feeling a sense of regret, are you able to forgive yourself that you couldn't have done it any better then? Because if you could, you would have. Are you able to accept your shortcoming? And now, on reflection, you have learned something. Whatever you have learned is to remember how to do it differently. And how could you do it differently in the future if such a similar situation happens again? And if somewhere within you unveils to you that it would be a good idea to apologize for the hurt, I hope you'll find it in your heart and your courage to do that. And now I'd like to invite you to sense your toes again, your feet, all the way up your legs into your body, your shoulders, and all the way up to your face. And the presence of your right hand across your shoulders to your left hand. And focusing on 3 beautiful breaths. And open your eyes. So I hope that little reflection with a calm mind gives you the space to consider how you could take care of a similar situation should it arise again. And before I pass over to Frank, I'd just like to share one more piece of writing with you that was written by another student. When I was 13 years old, I had my first panic attack. There was a misunderstanding, and it made my father furious. Long story short, he lashed out at me at a bus stop. He yelled at me and threatened to slap me. I have never seen him this angry before. I would never forget how loud he yelled and how menacing he looked. I remember my entire body turning warm, my heart clenching, tears rolling down my face, and hyperventilating. Everyone at the bus stop was staring. I tried to fight back, but I twitched every time he raised his voice. This is what now I understand as fight, flight, freeze response. After the incident, we did not speak for 2 weeks. I felt anxious all the time and avoided him at all cost. We have become distant and we now hardly speak to each other. It has been years, and this event that happened led to the breakdown of our relationship. Up until today, I still minimize interactions with him for fear of conflict. And this person who wrote this is now 20 years old. So the trauma is still very much felt by him. So whatever we do as parents, to be able to manage our emotions is paramount to how effective we are as a parent. And if we lash out at our children, we have not taught them what we want them to learn. We may have just taught them on how to fear, which I believe that's not our intention. Over to you, Frank.
Thank you very much, Angie. Hello, everybody out there. I thought what we will do today, with some remaining time, is to recollect some of the patterns that our young students shared with us over the last few Sundays. Because I think it's important to try and put together how parents' behaviors towards children can sometimes undermine them and undermine their ability to get on in their lives. So I will talk about what they said, where were the patterns or general patterns, and how the kids actually um, managed it. How did they actually address it? That is very interesting. And then I'll wrap it up with some reminders or some tips on what we can do as parents going forward. So for the kids who shared their stories with us, there was it was very clear that the parents that they were working with had a lot of fear. As usual, all parents have fear for their children about their future prospects. And what the parents may not have understood from these children, at least from their tales, the impact it had on the children that arose from their behaviors, that arose from the fears. One thing that parents tend to do is they try to protect the kids, right? We all tend to do that. But when we do that, we fail to empower them, and we fail to help them realize that they have resources within themselves to deal with their lives. And that is very important, because when we allow them to use their resources to deal with their problems, then we're making them resilient to manage their challenges into the future. The fears also then gives rise to certain behaviors and habits on the part of the parents. And we heard this from some of the kids. There were some physical punishments bordering on abuse. There were some emotional and psychological talk downs that you actually help the kid feel very small about themselves. Their self-worth took a lot of beating from the way the parents addressed them. Caning was there. Someone mentioned about caning. There was this tendency to compare the kids' performance with other kids, relatives or other siblings within the house. And when we do that, they felt that there was little faith in their abilities. The parents showed little faith in their abilities. Parents were very interested in standards and outcomes versus the amount of effort that the kid was putting in to do as well as they possibly could. And of course, there was always this omnipresent stresses on academics and performing well on academics, going to the best schools and universities and so on and so forth. And when we talked about when they don't emphasize effort, I don't think the parents are helping the kids to take ownership of their lives, to take responsibility for their actions, and to be accountable to themselves for what they're doing with the time and how they manage it. So the kids felt there was some harm that was done to them. They talked about how parents will try and indicate, you have to listen to me on the highway. I am monitoring you. I got my eyes on you. You know, I expect high standards and I have high expectations. And this pressure and the stresses on the kids felt it very deep. They felt shame if they could not produce the results. They felt judged and they felt assessed. And this was some of the kids was going on for a very long time. And to make matters worse for them, parents came in with different styles. So sometimes you have the mom who is a lot more empathetic and loving and caring, but the dad will, be very harsh on the kids with their expectations. And then sometimes the dad will be harsh during the first few years of the academic years, and then they lay off the pressure on subsequent years. It's like as though they're not there anymore, and the kids are left on their own. So these inconsistencies in the child's life, parents not co-parenting, standards varying between various phases in their lives, confuses them. And there was disorientation. And it took further hits on their sense of well-being and their centeredness. So what did the kids do? I was amazed with what these kids did. They decided to deal with it. And they had this opportunity with NG and the program in NUS to do a mindfulness course. And I think when they did that, the kids said, I'm going to take ownership of my life. And I'm going to be responsible and accountable to myself for my behaviors and my actions. And so when they went through the course, they learned a lot of new stuff. And they became the new person in their own lives. They learned about acceptance. They learned about listening to the other person and accepting the other person. They learned about how to be empathetic with people around them. They learned how to keep an open mind on things and not be so judgmental. They learned about letting go. They learned about forgiving. And they learned about how to create a new relationships, and particularly with members of their family. You know, and when I kept hearing these initiatives on their part and how they changed as individuals, I said the ball had changed courts. The children now became the parent in the family. And with their change, they also brought change to the family, and relationships improved. The question I have for the parents out there, should this have really happened, where the child then takes the initiative to deal with his or her own life without guidance from the parents? Or should the parents have been there all the way, helping them feel good about themselves and providing the guidance that the kids need from the parents' wisdom through life to help them navigate through their challenges? Interesting question, isn't it? I leave it to you to ponder over that, while I will go through some of the tips that I think may be useful when you want to parent based on this kind of feedback that we got from the kids, right? So the first thing is, I think parents need to help the kids understand that they have resources, that they have the strengths to do the things that they have to do in their lives. And your role is to try and guide them, help them feel that they have the resources to be resilient, help them develop also their resilience in their life. Help them to keep pushing despite all the challenges that they have in their lives and all the setbacks they're going to be facing, because there's going to be many of those in their lives. And they better do it all while they are under your roof, so that you can teach them how to do this well, rather than having to learn this on their own when they leave home, because they may not do a good job without your guidance over there. So if you want to experiment with the kids and let them take cues for their lives, let them do it while you're still around. And I think you can help them realize how to make good choices, in their lives. Ownership, accountability, responsibility. Parents have to show the kids that you are very good in ownership, responsibility, and accountability. That you are very good in your roles as parents, as father, as mother, as a professional, as a member who's looking after the family. If you can show them that you are good in OAR, they are going to be good at OAR. And when they see you model such a behavior, I think they would definitely be very grateful for that in the years to come. Prepare them for uncertain times. As you can see around us today and into the future, many things are changing. And Desmond Lee, the minister, yesterday had a press conference, and he said that during the COVID circuit breaker period, a lot of young people called in with mental health challenges because they were afraid of what was going to happen in their future. The lack of a job, lack of certainty, concerns about how well they will do or not do well. And these are the things that are already happening right now. And these are the things that they're going to be facing a lot more into the future. So this is when you as a parent can help them deal with these uncertainties and to be comfortable with the unknown. And that is what resilience is all about. Educate the kids, help them to be street smart. A lot of harm out there, potential harm out there. And they need to know, if we go into too much gaming, what's going to be the impact on you. Let them decide for themselves. If you get into smoking, what are the possibilities of you getting into drugs? If you go out there and party with your friends and get into alcohol, how is that going to set in as a habit that in the longer run may lead to alcoholism? There are many of these addictions out there, and you have to bring it out into the open and help them understand what happens out there with young kids and how they're going to be affected by this. Help them to be street smart. As parents, don't sweat the small stuff. We mentioned this some time ago. Some of the kids are very annoyed with how parents are sweating the small stuff, right? Make up your bed and wash your plates. And there seems to be a greater emphasis on these things, rather than things like OAR, teaching them how to take ownership of their actions and responsibility and accountability. Help them develop emotional reserves and stamina, persistence. Everywhere you go, you're going to be affected emotionally. And you need to have the reserves to be able to handle the shocks and the tsunamis that are going to come their way. And if you learn how to develop emotional strength, then you learn how to develop effective, healthy relationships. And this is what the kids learned, right? When they went into the mindfulness classes, they learned about how they can take on life with an attitude in mind that would give them strength to handle their emotions and their thoughts. And I think that was very powerful for them, and they will hold them in good state in the years to come. Relate to them, please. And nothing better than spending time and spending more time with them. And if you want to relate to your child and you want to be next to them, you want them to be next to you forevermore, do what works, don't do what does not work, don't drift them away from you, but spend time understanding them, understanding their challenges, and help them to navigate through that, through your wisdom and your life experiences. And for husband and wives out there, please come together and work as a team. There's nothing more important to a child than father and mother working as a team to help me through my challenges in my life. And that consistency, and even if one of the parent has a particular strength in a particular scenario, pass it over. If the mother is very good at dealing with a relationship breakdown, then let the mother deal with it and the father will support. If it's got to do a career choice as they come out of university or NS or polytechnic, and the father is good at this technical part of the world, let the father take the lead and the mother will support. So you both don't have to rush in to try and help the kids on the same issue all the time. Hey, take a break, fall back in the support role and give the other person the chance to do the job. And lastly, but not leastly, the most important thing is love them fiercely. Even when they are a pain in the butt, just love them fiercely. Hug them frequently. Touch the back, cook for them. No matter how rebellious they may be, as long as the love is omnipresent, I think the relationship will be very healthy. So I'll leave some of these thoughts with you based on what we have heard from our students over the last few weeks. They were very brave to share that with us, and a couple of other letters that Angie shared too. So we will take any questions we may have.
Frank, there's a question here is what is OAR? Because I think you used the acronym OAR.
Yeah, sorry. Yes. Ownership of one's life. You must be able to take ownership of your life. And the earlier you start, the more accustomed you get to that. And that is going to be very important to you for the rest of your life. R stands for responsibility. You must be responsible to yourself for your actions, right? You cannot do things and then blame it on the rest of the world. It has to come from you. You have to take responsibility for that. And accountability means that if you do make a mistake, stand up and accept it and tell everyone, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, learn something from it. Don't run away from your mistakes. And this ownership, responsibility, and accountability is what makes a person resilient through their life. If they start early, they make the mistakes, they're going to learn from it, and then they're going to move on. So yeah, I use OAR. You can turn it around in any other way that you want to. I use OER because of oar, right? You row yourself. You're a captain of your own ship, so use OER. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, there's a question here about if the kid refuses to go for treatment like mindfulness course, what do the parents do? Now, these students who sign up for the mindfulness course in NUS were not prompted by their parents. They wanted to get onto the course to actually learn about themselves. So at some point when they have the curiosity, they would want to do it. They don't even have to be pushed by their parents. My children have not gone for a mindfulness course, or at least even if they did, they wouldn't have told me because they might feel that that's what mom wanted them to do. What's really important is for us to go through that mindfulness course and to really embody the 9 foundational attitudes, which starts with, if it's Mbsr, curiosity. Being curious about our kids and putting judgments aside. So the non-judging, the non-striving, the acceptance, the practicing letting go. These are really powerful foundational attitudes to embody, and it's always work in progress. When we do this, we are imparting these foundations to our kids. So I don't think it's a good idea to force the kids to go. Let them be curious as to how mindfulness can be changing you, and they may even be interested themselves and say, hey, I want to attend it too.
Okay.
Yeah, there is a comment on the top that says, please understand it's also very challenging to parents. We parents are doing our best. Not all parents push their kids to excel in academics. We parents have other roles too, and we're struggling to cope, and we do the best. Indeed. I think if Frank has a chance to tell his story, he has a lot of pains as well that he went through, and so did his wife in bringing up his 2 sons. So that goes the same for me. I think we all do our best. And much of the way we do it has been from what we have learned from our parents. Hopefully, we have learned some really good approaches in parenting, but sometimes we inherit some of their not so good approaches, and we perpetuate the damage that it may have caused. Now, although as parents we don't push our kids in academics, but there's a lot of push factor, one of which is themselves. They themselves want to do well, and sometimes they can't do well. And when they can't do well, they go into a flight mode, like, I'm just going to give up, I don't care anymore. And that is actually an expression of their struggle, their pain. But it may come across to us that they are giving up, but they're actually struggling. So if we can go forward to them and says, hey, however well you do, it's okay. We love you, and we don't judge you based on how you do academically. And you can take a longer path, and it's okay. You can take a different pathway, and that's okay too, because our love is not conditional. And I think this is really something kids find it very comforting to know. I know growing up, my parents have never put academic standards or KPIs on us. And we've all done well because we didn't have the pressures. And there was no expectation except go to university. Frank, okay, perhaps you might want to take the next one. Children can also do their part in interacting with their parents. Sometimes it's the children who are pushing their parents away. So please don't think that parents are always at fault when the relationships break down.
I have seen that, and I have had clients who have also done that. I had a case recently where this young client kind of just locked herself up in the room, and she didn't want to interact with her parents. And so the parents were very concerned that they could not reach out to her. And so no matter how much they tried, it didn't work out. So they did the next right thing. They went to see a specialist. They brought the case to me, and we sat down, we discussed the situation. And then I went to make an arrangement to talk to the young person. And it was amazing. The young person was very mature, and most of them that I talked to are very mature. Some of them are even mature beyond their age. They are reading up a lot. They are understanding what's happening in the family dynamics. And this young person felt that she was not doing well enough, that she is a burden to the family, that she didn't want to make life any more difficult for her parents or for her mother. And she didn't have any answers going forward about how she should behave and how she should make life better overall for the family. So she was very shameful, and she was very guilty about what she was not able to deliver herself. And so because of that, she just locked herself up. So I had to, we talked about it, and we helped her understand that she is not that useless person that she makes her out to be, that there are many things that she has done, that she has resources that got her to where she is today. She has a narrative for herself for the future, and that is very good. And that she does not have to be the best person to contribute to the family's happiness. That sometimes the happiness within the family is an individual responsibility of the individual members. But what she can do is try and be the best person in the family, see what she can do to better herself, focus on herself, focus on how she can do better, look at the opportunities that she has. And so, that event, that got her going a little bit. And then when she felt that, yeah, actually, I do have the potential to exercise my freedom. And so I can do things. Nobody's stopping me. And she says, nobody's stopping me. I said, yeah, why don't you go ahead and do that? And then slowly eased her into the discussion about, so what do you think, how do you think you could help your parents out here? Because if you're locking yourself up in the room, you're not helping the family at all, you think you could maybe come out and discuss some of these things with them, and don't feel so sheepish about it or so guilty about it? He says, yeah, maybe I can help, I can do that. And that's what happened. And bang, the next time we had parent and child together, and together we sat down and discussed the whole issues. The parent was able to talk about how she saw that and what she was so worried about. And the child was also able to share that. There was a lot of catharsis, and, eventually became better. And today, much better. She don't lock herself up in the room anymore. So you'll be surprised what bothers the kids. And sometimes you are right, the parent doesn't know. So if you have no idea and you can't bridge the gap with your kid, and you've tried everything else possible, then seek a help from somebody else. I think no harm in doing that. Yeah, because there may be something there that you may not be able to see, and maybe a professional who has dealt with more issues of this nature can help you through.
Thank you, Frank.
Yeah.
There's a comment here. So children can also do their part in interacting with their parents. Sometimes it's the children who are pushing their parents away. Please don't think that parents are always at fault when the relationship breaks down. So I don't think here we're talking about fault. It's about how do we empower ourselves to be a better parent, and how do we help to empower our children. So this is not about fault finding. Yes, in any relationship, it takes two. But given that we are the more mature party in the relationship, we have lived many, many more years. And also with a brain that is probably fully developed compared to our children who have still developing brains, which is going on to 25. We have to take more ownership as to how we can adjust our parenting approach and strategy. And just continue to learn, continue to be creative and innovate and find ways of managing the situation. I certainly have periods of time when my child won't speak to me, and I have to learn how to be comfortable with that and to allow them that space to work their own issues out. Often we think that it's about us, and perhaps it wasn't. And I do have another essay here that is about a student who was going through a breakup with his girlfriend. His parents doesn't know it, but because it was so painful for him and he felt so at fault and inadequate and a loss of confidence in relationships that he just shut himself out. And he may have had a little disagreement with the parent as well because he wasn't in a good mood, and the parents may have blamed themselves for it, but it wasn't the case. He was going through a breakup. And because many of our children don't even share with us that they have a relationship, so they may be going through a relationship issue that we're not even aware of. Yeah. So it's about giving them the space and giving them that trust. And it's not easy for them. They are, they're not well equipped. Even adults are not always well equipped when it comes to relationships not working out, or there's a lot of arguments and disharmony in relationship. I mean, look at us parents when we have a disagreement with our spouse. How do we handle it? And I think how we handle it is going to be teaching our children how to handle it or how not to handle it at times. So once again, we are the adult. So we need to be willing to learn, to improve, and to innovate.
Yeah. The teenage mind is my God, is one of the most difficult mind to navigate. And the teenager doesn't have all the resources that we adults have, They can't make good judgments because that part of the brain is still developing. They are too emotional because that is already overdeveloped, the limbic system. And hormones are flying all over the place. They're going through a phase of self-identification. Who am I? What do I stand for? Then when they have the environment outside them that puts the pressure on them while they're going through this defining moment in their lives, it just gets very difficult. I mean, look at us. I mean, we have been in situations like that, even with a fully developed brain, right? Environment out there, COVID situation is worrying us. We may not have been doing very well in our jobs. Our relationships are not the best in this world. So we have all these stressors that's going on around us, right? And how do we cope? Some of our needs are not being met. And because our needs are not being met, we start to behave in a manner to try and get it met. And that behavior is what that gets us into trouble. So if we can if adults can get themselves into trouble with life's challenges, just imagine what the kids goes through with a mind that's still not developed. Yeah.
Absolutely agree. I think we need to look back into our teenage days as to what it was like for our parents. I'm sure many of our parents were tearing their hair out trying to figure us out, and we didn't want to share a lot. We wanted to be able to solve our own problems or work it out with our friends.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a question here. My daughter is 16 and said she has no motivation to study. She's supposed to take her O levels, but she's not doing much. What is the best way to handle this? Do I let her be? Frank, over to you.
Yeah, tough one. These are the tough ones.
Yeah, I'll give you all the tough ones.
I took my master's at the age of 59. I started my master's in counseling at the age of 59 and I finished it at the age of 62. I was the grandfather of my class. The rest of the students were half my age, And I'm grateful that I did it that late in my life because I had a lot of life experience to kind of put it together with what I was learning. And I'm very grateful that I went through that. The kid is not studying, it's not because something is troubling the kid. You have kids, I have kids, clients who force their child who are the best in a rural school to move into a top school, and then they become bottom of the class. And their confidence shatters, their self-worth shatters. Then we have kids who are in the top school, and a lot of kids in the top school have a lot of stresses, and the kids in the top school are competing very hard with each other to get to the best grades, to go to the best universities and courses. to be able to secure a place overseas and so on and so forth. So they also have gone to travel. If a kid has a problem with academics and studies, there is something that is bothering them about it. What is it? And we need to find out from the kid, what is it? Are they feeling that they're not performing as well as the others? Are they feeling that somebody in the home is doing better and therefore he or she is getting more preferential treatment than them? There is always a reason why the kid does not want to do what they think is important for them. And they know it's important for them, right? Their future is at stake. And they know that education is the best leveler and the best way to get out of whatever traps you may be in. They know that. Everybody knows that. So if it's not happening, there is a reason why it's not happening. And it requires a lot of chat between parents and kids to figure that out. Now, even if you have the chat and the kid is not really interested in studying, then fine, you take a break. Take a break for 1 year. What is 1 year when the kid is going to, if there's a female, is going to live for 85 to 90 years? What is 1 year? And in that 1 year, try to help the kid redefine themselves, to find out what's good about themselves, get them to engage in activities that will help them feel useful, that they can adding value and making a difference to the world. As soon as they feel this sense of presence in their life, and they're feeling that, oh, it's worth living rather than just existing and just doing what everybody else wants me to do rather than what I want to do for myself, they come alive. And when they come alive, they're ready to take off again. And so don't worry about this. We get into this thing, oh, you must study and must graduate by 16, you must go to university by 20, and you must get out all by about 24, 25, Many people have been late bloomers, and they have done very well in their lives. But they go through a phase, that is this biological factor, the way you're wired. There's a psychological factor, the way you were shaped. And there's a social factor, the way, the company that you keep. All these influences the way you think. And there's so many of these things. And we sometimes don't even know what's affecting them because they don't know what's affecting them. So if she's not ready, empathize with her, hug her, sit down with her, make her feel that she's loved, love her fiercely no matter what, and then slowly ask her, what do you want to do? And where can we go in the meantime? And that will hold you good in the long run. Yeah.
Thank you, Frank. I was just smiling at your phrase, love her fiercely. I was going to say, love her kindly.
Yes. The intensity of love, it's, you got to have that there. Yeah.
And I just wondered, how much fun we put into parenting. Have we forgotten the fun out of, being as part of a family to, when we go out, to be able to talk about things and to be able to laugh about it, to take a nature walk together and discover what's out there in the parks, or, just going to shops together and to be able to just be with each other, that there doesn't have to be an objective, but just feeling the presence of each other. I think this is something that many of us may have forgotten to do.
Yeah.
So there was a little essay that was shared with me, which I'll just read out to you as well. It says, my family enjoyed exploring the green spaces across the island. You name it, we've been there. Those were truly carefree days. I remember sharing about these trips in show and tell sessions and my English compositions. The exposure to nature in my growing years continues to influence my life up to today. And because of all the positive emotions that I have associated nature with, I have grown to regard green spaces as my harbor. So please take your children out, appreciate nature. So coming back to some of the questions here, my friend has a P6 boy who has game addiction issue, weak in his study, and daddy's just passed on. Whenever my friend tried to stop him from playing games, he would start crying and said, Mommy doesn't love him because he's lousy in his studies and he's stupid. Mommy loves his little brother and the sister, but not him. She's struggling. Well, losing your parent is huge. And at his age, it is even harder for him to process, because death is not something that you expect, and a separation of this sort is traumatizing to a child. So if he needs some time off, and he needs some time to grieve, some time to reconcile, and also what this sometimes brings up is fear in their own death, which we may not be listening to. So sit down and ask him, what are you fearful of? What are your fears? And address the fears and tell him it's okay if he wants to take the rest of the year off and do P6 the following year. Because after all, life is not a race. There's no start and stop lines. There's always continuing education. And even if he's 1 year behind, it's okay. And even if he gets a low PSLE mark, it's okay. As I mentioned before, my daughter has 195 and she has blossomed. So, please don't let PSLE define the child. And there's another question here, which I will take, is how to help my child whom has dropped out of university due to depression, but can't focus and not excellent compared with others. And I'll combine it with one other one that says, what if you don't agree with the career choice or the choice of study? So I remember when my daughter went to university, she picked a course which I thought, what's she going to do with it after she graduates, right? She comes back to Singapore. But I held my tongue. And I thought, if that is what she chooses, let her go with it. Let her find her way, even if it means that she might change her major, which I did when I went to university. I started with one major and I ended up with another major. And then she went on and did a master's degree in marketing. And it was something that she discovered that it was her interest. Although I saw that marketing would be a really good field for her, but it wasn't my place to say it. Because if I had said it, she would probably be more determined not to do it, as many smart, rebellious kids are like. So sometimes they just end up finding their own way when we can just let go. And her second year, because she was studying in England, she went back and she actually felt depressive. And she said, Mom, I'm very depressed. I said, okay, come home. Give yourself a break. Take a semester off. And she later told me, because she was given that choice, she decided that she will push on. So sometimes it's just to let go, and it takes the pressure off them, and then their mind clears up and they can make a better decision. So
I know of many stories where children took up studies because the parents wanted them to take up those studies. And then they will go in there and then they will graduate in the particular major. And then after that, they will turn around to the parents and say, here's the certificate that you wanted. Now I will go out there and do my own thing. And they have not failed. Sometimes we need to see education as a means of expanding your lateral and vertical thinking capabilities, because I think that is what you're going to need when you go forward, right? I mean, a lot of jobs today have become redundant because of technology. COVID-19 is going to make a lot of jobs redundant, and all those who have had certain specializations have got to retrain and become re-relevant again into the market. And those who would survive are those who are keen on life, keen on growing, keen on taking on the challenge to move on. And if they have already got that lateral and vertical thinking capabilities, they can fit into anything. They can find a way forward. And I think just forcing them to learn what you want them to learn is not going to be the only way forward. I don't think so. And I had a couple of questions there on gambling, gaming and addiction, right? And this is something a lot of parents are.
Continue there. I'm just going to show the poster of the upcoming conference, because many of you parents, I think you would find it very interesting to learn from some of these experts who'll be coming into the conference to present. I was going to say come into town, but they're not coming to town. They are going to be signing on from the US and Australia. And I'd like to particularly mention about Dr. Christopher Willard, psychologist and author from Harvard Medical School. And he's going to be talking about science and management of teen anxiety and why the world needs mindfulness more than ever. And there'll be 2 workshops that he's conducting in mindful teaching techniques for kids and teens. Now, the other one I want to mention is Mindful Learning, Reducing Stress and Improving Brain Performance by Professor Craig Hassett. He's from Monash University. He's a doctor himself, as well as a faculty in the medical school, teaching mindfulness to both faculty and students. And mindfulness education, Richard Burnett was a teacher himself and founded Mindfulness in School project. And he has 2 programs called .B and Pause B that are very well received in the secondary schools and primary schools in the UK. And so he has a charity that conducts a lot of training for the teachers. So we are also planning to collaborate with them. So please apply for your free conference pass to attend and share it with as many friends as you possibly can so that they too will benefit from it. Now, I saw some questions here about teaching mindfulness to secondary school students and getting your child enrolled in the mindfulness course. We are planning that, but not right away, because I really would like parents to embark on their journey. And whether you start with Mbsr or with the foundation course, whichever one is fine, depending on your schedule. Now, I have to take leave, but I'm very glad that Frank is going to be able to stay on and to take on more of your questions. So I'm going to bid you farewell for now. And thank you once again for signing on to this program. And next week will be our last mindful parenting program, as we'll be transitioning into August, where all our Singapore Mindfulness Conference programs will be kicking in. So over to you, Frank, and thank you everyone for your kind presence.
Thank you, Angie. I saw some questions there about gaming, and many parents have this concern that their kids are getting into gaming and they are addicted. A point is that there are agencies in Singapore that can help you deal with gaming addiction if your kid is really chronically into gaming addiction. But being an addiction counselor myself, I would just like to indicate, and I've counseled alcoholics to drug addicts to people who engage in gambling and other forms of addiction. And the thing about addiction, very briefly, is that it gives you, when you engage in the particular activity, it gives you a relief. People who are into any form of addiction are troubled. They don't feel free. They're carrying burdens on their back, some kind of emotional and psychological burden. They're not happy with their lot, generally speaking. And so when they get into something that takes their mind away from those burdens, it is such a relief for them. And so when it's such a relief for them, they get into this world and they put all the burdens behind, and they're very happy. They get their serotonin and their dopamine effects. And that's what happens to a lot of drug addicts and alcoholics and so on and so forth. And even for the kid, a kid who feels certain pressure within themselves, it could be something to do with academics. It could be something to do with a relationship in the house. It could do something with the environment within the family that they're not happy about, right? Or it's something that they're just growing up and they don't know who they are, the teenage brain. And so when they engage in these games, and in the gaming world, there are also another community out there that they engage with, then they forget about their troubles. And when that happens, then they will go back into this again and again. They will relapse. And when they relapse, they feel a relief. And when they don't do it, they feel this burden come back at them. And they really feel very uncomfortable. And so the best way to deal with this is to really sit down with them and have that chat. I keep saying this many a time. And even if they don't want to, be patient, let them figure it out, how it's going to be affecting them. And sometimes they will also be willing to talk to a therapist about it. But the important thing is to try and find out what is it that is troubling them, what is it that they're carrying on their backs that is troublesome for them, which is a burden for them, and help them to address it, help them to overcome that. And then maybe when they feel a bit happier, they can find a balance between getting on with the important things that is important for them in their life and also having fun, rather than being addicted to the fun because they cannot cope with the pressures in life. I hope that helps address that question. Let me see what else there is. Someone mentioned here about the importance of introducing laughter. That is so true, you know. Humor is so important in our lives. There are so many serious things going on. There's nothing better than a bit of humor. Nagging, yeah, nagging is one of the disconnecting habits between parents and children. Try not to do that. Try to accept them, listen to them, understand what is going on in their lives. And if they're doing something that's not helpful for them, help them understand that, and then let them decide whether they want to go for it or not. At the end of the day, they need to know, and you have to display, the parents, as I say, have to display good model behavior in the household anyway. For example, if a kid is going to go into gaming and the father is or the mother is fully into gaming, then and they're not spending time relating to each other within the family, that's not good modeling, right? But humor, yes, I agree. Humor is very important. What is your opinion on kids who turn out bad from good parents? Is yes, that can happen. There are, as I said, three factors that affect the way we all behave. The biological factor, that is the way you're wired, and the psychological and the social factor. And sometimes the biological factor has a significant impact on the way a person turns out to be. And we have to be mindful of that. I won't say a child turns out bad. That's too judgmental. But if a child is not going to be functional in their life for one reason or the other, there must be one of these three reasons that is affecting them. And if you think the parent has been good and functional and loving, and they've provided a safe environment and a loving environment, and the child is still dysfunctional, then there is a high probability that is more biological. There may be some sort of a mental disorder that needs to be evaluated by child psychiatrists or psychologists, and then you take it from there. And even if there is one, right approaches, right interventions can help the kid bounce back. But the earlier it's done, it's better, because when the brain is young and it's still developing, there are possibilities where you can create new pathways, neural pathways, for them to adapt to new behaviors and new habits. So if there is a question mark, hey, I've done everything I possibly can, and the kid is still not responding for their own good, then take them to a specialist and let the specialist have a look at it. Would you recommend parents sign up for the basic Mbsr? Absolutely, sir. Anybody who asks, I will recommend mindfulness courses for everybody. It really is so useful in helping us to manage our emotions and our thoughts. When you sit down and you ask yourself questions like, do I want to accept this? Do I want to let it go? Am I going to be benefiting from this by hanging on to something that is depleting? We all have a choice in engaging things that either depleting takes us down or replenishing, right? And I think mindfulness helps us do that. It helps us be curious, and it helps us become explorers, to go out there and look for new creative solutions to our reigning problems, for example. It helps us to relate better to people around us, the loving kindness part, the generosity part, right? And I think mindfulness is I think, very, very good. It would help us center us. It would help us to create that cognitive capacity, the psychological reserve to take on additional pressures
the life is going to throw on us, and we can't run away from those. Okay. Should we start to control them at a young age? Well, I would use the inverted funnel approach, right? When they are young, you want to be tight in their control because you want to keep them safe, and you want to teach them the right behaviors to help them function in life later as they get older. But as they get older, you got to release those controls so that they now have choices. They feel that they have control over their lives, and then you guide them and you help them understand that some of the choices they're going to have will have consequences, and there are trade-offs. Let them understand that. Now, that was an earlier question. Do you want to see them fail when you're still around? Yes, that's the best time to see them fail, when you're around, so that you can help them understand, learn lessons from it, and then move on into their adult life. So don't try and go out there and remove obstacles from them. Let them make mistakes, and as they get older and older, release them. Let them go, I know of many parents who are very uncomfortable about this because of all the problems that's out there in the real world. All the poor behaviors and the addictive behaviors. Yes, so teach them to be street smart, nice and early. Bring them into this kind of issues. Tell them what is happening in society as a whole. Why do we have homeless people? Why do we have people who don't own their own homes? Why do we have 10,000 people in Changi prison who are drug addicts? Why do we have people who cannot go to the casinos? Help them understand all these things, and understand human behavior. And I think that will serve them well in the long run. Whether can ask depression people not to play games? Well, depression is a mental health issue. If they are depressed, there are reasons why. And I'll be very honest with you, sometimes people choose to depress. Sometimes it is a combination of environmental factors that gets them depressed. And understanding what causes the depression is very important. And for children, if we don't help them manage the stresses early, then that will lead to anxiety. And we don't learn how to manage those anxieties, it will eventually lead to depression. So understanding this trend in mental health is very important. And at the earliest opportunity, if they're not functional, we should try and help them understand themselves. We should understand what's going on in their lives, and discuss with them what kind of interventions they need in their lives. Sometimes it's useful to get them engaged, At what age should we release control of our kids? It all depends on the kid. It depends on the environment, on a number of factors. But rather than say at what age should we release control, can we, from the word go, discuss with the kids what they want to do, whether it's good for them, not good for them, what are the potential hazards involved, and then help them understand how you make good decisions, the ownership, the accountability, and the responsibility stuff. Help them understand this, and let them, and then slowly watch how they make decisions, and slowly watch how they take control of their lives, and then teach them whether they did a good job at that or not. So there is no actual age where you want to start or not start, but as I would say, as early as you possibly can, let them have control. But be tight when they're early, pre-teens, and then start letting go, loosen the grips as they become teens and post-teens. Yeah. What advice you give for the child always at the bottom of the class in a top school? Ask the child whether they're happy where they are. Because when you're always at the bottom, it takes a huge hit on your self-worth. And once your self-worth is damaged, there's very little to bounce back, we all are competitive. Right? That's the self-esteem part. To me, the self-esteem part is all the competitive. How you want the world to view you. You need the world to view you in a very good light, right? You want to be put on a pedestal, right? You want to be the best, right? That's all the self-esteem. But deep down inside, is the young kid, is the young person happy with themselves? What are the burning questions that they have? What is it they're not happy about, and why? And what can be done to bring a greater sense of life satisfaction for them, So if a kid is at the bottom of the class, it is not very good for him or her, right? So let's ask, how is it affecting them? What is it that they would like to do? Would they like to move school? Would they like, is that very important to move school just because you are at the bottom? Or is there something else you can do to get up higher in the rankings, so to say? But despite that, what is important? The grades and where you rank in your class, or what you are learning and what you can apply as you go forwards. So these are the kind of sometimes adult discussions we need to have with the kids. And I think the kids today are very mature for their age. They're reading quite a lot, they're sharing quite a lot. So don't be afraid to take the tough questions and the more mature adult approaches to the issues at hand. I've apologized to my child due to once I've slept and humiliated the child in public. The child says he won't forgive me. Yeah, they get hurt as much as we will get hurt too if the same thing happens to us in public. But apologize and tell the kid, I will not do it again, and continue to love them dearly and deeply. Show them that you are still of great concern to them, that they are very important to you in your life. And as long as you continue to grow that relationship with the child, and I think it will come back. The child is just angry. So help them to relate back to you. And the only way that can be done is if we continue to relate to them. So yeah, that's as much I can say right now. That's as much as I can do right now, ladies and gentlemen. And I think I'd like to thank you all for the session today. If you have any further questions and you want to follow up in any further matters, you can always write into Brahm Centre, info@bramcentre.com, and we will follow up with you. Okay, we will follow up with you. So until we see you next Sunday, let me wish you all the best. Please stay well, keep well, and remain happy. And we will see you again next week. Thank you very much. Have a good Sunday. Bye.